everyone. I'm Doc Hamels, and in the continuing history of Destination Chautauqua, we're interviewing candidates each year. For those that were able to meet here at the studio. And today we're going to be meeting and talking with Joe Gerace, who presently is Chautauqua County Sheriff and running for the same seat for another 4 years. So I want to welcome Joe to the show, Chautauqua Candidates, and how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Great to be here with you, Doc.
It's that time of year, isn't it, where you're putting up signs and going to chicken dinners and getting out there, aren't you?
It's a busy time trying to balance that with overseeing the operation of the Sheriff's Office, but yes, we are working both sides of it. Okay,
well, great. Well, thanks for joining me. You've been sheriff for some time now, but since your last election was about 4 years ago, people have moved to the county, and I was thinking maybe starting out the interview today with, tell us a little bit about yourself, because sometimes new people, they hear your name, but they don't know anything about you, and you might want to share some of that.
I'd be happy to.
Sure.
I'm a lifelong county resident, born and raised in Chautauqua County. When I graduated high school from Southwestern High School, I went to Jamestown Community College, obtained an associate's degree from JCC, and then got hired by the Chautauqua Institution, worked on their police force through the summer, and then the whole next winter got offered to go to the Sheriff's Academy, which I did, and was hired by the Sheriff's Office after that on the navigation patrol. But I continued my education, obtained my bachelor's degree from Mercyhurst College in Erie, Pennsylvania, was hired full-time by the Sheriff's Office, and later completed my master's degree in administration from Alfred University. I have continued my education. I attended the National Sheriff's Institute, where I was named the president of my class, elected to that position by sheriffs across the country. I've served as the New York State Sheriff's Association president, elected to that by my peers, and I currently serve as a trustee for that organization. And I serve as the chairman of their 911 committee. I'm also on the New York State Interoperable Communications Board, which I was appointed to, and I represent our county and our area on very key issues, and that's interoperable radio communication for public safety, and also 911. I chair the 911 committee statewide. So I've been involved in a lot of things. I'm involved in my community. I serve as the president of the Chautauqua Children's Safety Education Village, and it's an amazing place in Asheville next to the Hughes Center BOCES. And I serve on the COI Board of Directors. I am on the advisory board for the Jamestown Downtown Development Corporation. I'm involved in my community. I coach youth hockey, softball for girls. I have a young daughter that still plays, and I've coached soccer and baseball in the past. So I love Chautauqua County. I love my job, and I want to continue to do that.
Good Lord, there's only 24 hours in a day. How do you fit all that in there?
Well, we try to balance it, but you know, I have a big family. My wife and I live in West Ellicott. We have 7 children. One lives far away, lives in Texas, but I have two children away in college right now, one attending Jamestown Community College, and the others are home. So
you got me beat. We had 4, but 7. Yeah. Well, I bet that's a lot of fun at the holidays. Okay, Joe. Chris Burt, the producer of the show, had sent you a list of topics that we might discuss today, and we're not going to get into all of them. But what's the #1 issue for your position as you see it right now?
Well, I would say the #1 issue that we face across the country, not just local law enforcement, but it has to do with illegal drugs. And obviously the opioid problem, we are not immune to that. And it does impact us in many different ways. It's not just people that are addicted and overdosing, but also related crimes, and not just the sale and possession of drugs, but committing other crimes to get money to buy drugs. And that is one of our biggest challenges, and we're attacking that in 2 ways. One is head on with the demand side, arresting drug dealers and people in possession of illegal drugs, but also the supply side. And I'm sorry, the demand side is the wanting of the drug, and the supply side is the selling and possessing. So we're attacking both. Currently I'm involved in developing a drug treatment unit in the jail. We are working with numerous partners in development of this treatment pod. Our hopes is that those that are addicted that come to jail will go to this area of the jail and get consistent and constant licensed treatment, and then upon release either be released to inpatient or outpatient treatment centers, and connecting that with re-entry into society. And the other thing that we've done, we began deploying Narcan to our deputies many years ago, and have had numerous saves with that antidote to overdose of opioid. But we also have a Vivitrol program in the jail now, which Vivitrol, for those that don't know, is a opioid blocking agent, and it prevents someone from getting a high from an opioid. And that is used very carefully, and it's not for everybody, but it can be used in cases where it could be beneficial for them, sending them into treatment. So we'll continue to work on both the enforcement and on the treatment side when we can inside the jail, and also educationally.
Okay, I want to stay with the drug discussion if we can for a little bit. There's a gorilla in the chambers of Albany right now that's sitting. It's like 800-pound thing called recreational marijuana. Now I realize that you don't make policy, you don't make laws, but you gotta enforce those. So, are you comfortable in discussing your position on that, or how it would affect Chautauqua County?
Well, I'm absolutely comfortable discussing my position, and I'm not personally in favor of it, and for a lot of reasons, and it will not impact the jail in a sense that we have all these people locked up for possession of marijuana. That's not true. That's not true at all. We don't have anybody locked up for that. So it won't.
So if you get stopped and you have like 5 joints on you,
it's a violation.
It's like a traffic ticket.
Correct.
Okay.
So that side of it, but I think about my kids, and should this be a legal substance because people want revenue, and I think about those that are led to other addictions because of it. And looking at the Colorado experiment, and if you call it an experiment, the law, the governor said he's not above repeal. Their crime rate has soared, the crash rate in vehicles has gone up, and there's been many other negative impacts. So I think it's too soon. The jury's still out. Again, I don't make policy, I enforce the law, but I personally am not in favor of it.
Okay. Because I know that it's been discussed in a variety of campaigns across the state, across the country, and so on. And I'm personally torn on it because I see both sides of it. But I won't digress into that. But I was just curious. So
I do support medical marijuana.
Okay.
And because you're under the guidance of a doctor, and if something will help someone, it's not my decision to make that choice. It's a licensed physician. But the recreational aspect, we don't even have a handle on alcohol, and we still are killing tens of thousands of people in alcohol-related crashes a year. The other issues that come from it, and I see the same kind of problem.
Okay. Well, as far as the marijuana, I guess I'm taking the position that if it were approved in New York State, that it's got to become a personal responsibility, as an adult responsibility, how you use it, whether it's alcohol or marijuana or texting while you're driving. You have to make choices. So we'll see how that all plays out, because it's I've talked with people on my own show, Chautauqua Sunrise, and we've talked about it being a gateway drug. And I've got people I've talked to who says, no, it's not. There's 15 studies from wherever university said it's not. And then the other people say, I've got 30 studies that says it is, it goes back to wherever. So the camps are really split. And it's not necessarily down political lines. It's very interesting. So, okay, well, let's continue on if we can. As far as the county jail, I know that is a thing that comes up in the newspapers and a lot as far as budget and who's in there. And so what do you see as far as the future of the jail? You mentioned your group, the drug treatment pods and things like that. So are there any other things in the works, or how are the numbers? I mean, what's the status of the jail in the future?
Well, right now, our jail population is relatively lower than it has been, and there's a number of reasons for that. One of the things that I'm proud of is I brought to the attention of the county executive when Vince Horgan was in to reestablish what's called the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, and that brings together everybody involved in the criminal justice system to talk about the system in general, everything from the arrest through the prosecution and incarceration. And I felt very strongly that we needed to be more unified in looking at who's in jail and, are they there for the right reasons? And I believe that this has had an impact, positive impact on the jail population, looking at bail amounts and right sizing, if you will. We've also had tremendous cooperation from the courts, utilizing state prison when it's appropriate instead of long-term sentences in the local jail. That's very expensive to the taxpayers. And we've seen this decline in the jail population, but we need to continue to work with this. I believe that having the public defender now available at arraignment in the city of Jamestown, the city of Jamestown sends about 2/3 of our inmates to the county jail. But having a public defender there at arraignment has, I believe, resulted in reduced bail amounts, and again, toward this right sizing the jail. The jail is an expensive part of our operation, but it's a necessary part of it. We are regulated by the state tremendously, but the state does not provide any funding for operating the county jail. That's a local cost, so our eyes are on that all the time. So the right sizing part of it, obviously using jail for the reasons it's set up for, pre-sentence, someone who's been arrested and not yet convicted. Bail should be to make sure they come back to court or to protect the public, and sometimes to protect themselves if they're self-destructive. But to have exorbitant bails on people who just can't afford them, who aren't a threat, they're not a risk to flight, that just costs us money, and it's punitive to people that don't have money.
Okay. I just had a thought. I just lost it. Doggone it. Okay, there's been some discussion about changing the age of youthful offenders. Any comments on that?
Well, that is already underway. New York State and, believe it or not, North Carolina were the only two states in the nation left where 16 and 17-year-old individuals could be housed with adults in jail and prisons. New York State passed a law called Raise the Age, and what it did is October 1st, 2018, so this past October 1st, 16-year-olds were first identified, and they no longer can be housed in county jails. And October 1st, 2019, it'll impact the 17-year-olds. So it's a change in the way we do business. We obviously can't house, but we weren't housing that many anyway. We averaged probably 4 or 5 a day in that 16, 17 age group. So the laws are complex, written hastily in my opinion, and a lot of this will kind of fall out as they're tried and tested. The issue that I have is there's very few secure housing facilities available to us across the state. It made no sense for Chautauqua County to build a youthful housing facility or adolescent offender facility. It would have cost millions of dollars, and very few people would be in it. So my worry is when we don't have bed space and we do have a violent offender in that age group, we may be shopping as far away as New York City.
And that's costly, of course.
That's costly. Now the state says they will be reimbursing counties for their expense of transporting inmates, but we've had experience with that before, and that may be here now and gone tomorrow. Okay,
so we'll have to keep an eye on that. The thought did come back to me. If I write it down, then I don't lose it, and I hadn't had a chance to write it down. There's discussion I've been hearing with the court system in the county that they're looking at, now I want to say it the best way I understood it, is that there would be weekend arraignments in the jail.
Well, it's actually, we refer to it as centralized arraignment.
Okay.
What happened is the New York State Court of Appeals ruled that it is a defendant's right to have counsel present at arraignment. For those that may not be familiar with the terminology, when someone's arrested, before they can be incarcerated, they have to be brought before the judge.
Yeah, you have to have your
you have to have a commitment.
due process.
And that is called the arraignment. The judge usually asks them if they're guilty, innocent, or guilty at that point, and then decides on bail. Well, the Court of Appeals said, look, that is a right of individuals to have an attorney present. So working with the Unified Court System or Office of Court Administration, we are establishing a centralized arraignment system here in the county where we will have arraignments available south, north in the 2 city courts, and then the central would be, we would host that arraignment at our facilities.
Okay.
So we would pre-hold people that would have been arrested, and then judges would come into the jail, an office area, and do the arraignment, and either they'd be released or they would be continue to be incarcerated.
And I would think this, once again, this would help moderate the jail populations where it should be appropriate, as opposed to having people languishing all weekend, and that would help keep costs down?
It could. It could have the positive impact that I see is that they have a defense counsel present who can argue for reasonable bail. So bail isn't set beyond what we would call reason. And again, there's been a lot talking about bail reform across the country because it tends to be punitive toward those that have no means. So somebody who can easily get a bond for $50,000 is different than someone who can't afford $500. And that person could be in jail for months waiting for their trial just because they can't post bail. They're not a threat to society, and they're not a threat of flight, but they're poor.
And I would think, maybe I'm wrong, but you would take someone in that situation who maybe, like you say, it's a very minor offense, and now you're putting them in with a population that could influence them to look to other more criminal activities. Am I on the right track there?
Well, that's always possible. We worry about that when we have to commingle inmates. We do classify them based on several points, but you always have that factor that they're mixing with others. But the big part is, should they be waiting? You know, our system is you're innocent till proven guilty, and we've been doing it backwards for many years, where they sit in jail for long periods of time. Then when their trial finally comes, they get released on time served. So they served all their time pre-sentenced.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
And some plead guilty because they just want to get out of jail. And even if they were innocent, they've pled guilty because they're, okay, you've spent 30 days, 60 days, whatever in jail, we'll give you time served if you plead guilty. They don't want to keep pushing the system longer out.
Okay, tougher question, and I don't think there's a real answer right now, but right now I'm interviewing the present sheriff, candidate for sheriff, all kind of rolled into one, and around us, I'm watching TV this morning, watching TV yesterday. It just seems that all around us, there's a national anger, there's national violence that's growing, and it seems to be becoming more violent, and it seems to be creeping. How do you see things here in Chautauqua County right now? Because people are watching TV, and I'm sure there's a certain amount of angst. So what can you tell them?
Well, I guess I would say we live in a very, very safe community. And we're not immune to things from happening to us, and we're not going to bury our head in the sand and say it can't happen. So we continue to work with our schools, our churches, and points of gathering. We're talking about security and safety and awareness, and we will continue to do that. I'm involved right now with the schools. We're working with them in many ways to try to enhance safety and security there. The most recent thing we're working on is connectivity to their security systems so we can monitor them live, real time, if necessary, not day to day. But we have SROs in many of our schools now, school resource officers. We have substations in several schools where deputies come and go for a presence, and they do walkthroughs of the school. So I think it's a constant dialogue that we have, and then to be prepared and plan, and when we can, prevent.
People sometimes are reluctant to say something. Something's going on in their neighborhood, the person next door is acting odd. We hear things that people just slough off. What's your comment on that?
Well, I think we need to continue to be vigilant in having people know that we want that information, and it may end up being dead end, or it may end up to be nothing more than idle threats, or not even to the threat level, just but to have it not be brought forth could be problematic. So we'll continue to encourage the public to communicate with us, and if they feel that they see something that's unusual, and we keep saying this, if you see something, say something, and we have to be vigilant with that.
Who would they talk to?
They can call the sheriff's office. They can
What's the
call their
number there?
local law
Who do they
enforcement.
call?
Well, 753-2131, the sheriff's office non-emergency phone number, and can ask to speak to a deputy or an investigator and give their information to us that way. They can email us.
Can they be anonymous?
They can be anonymous, and even if they tell us who they are, that we can still keep them anonymous. And when it comes to moving the information forward.
You mentioned school resource officer, to get it out right. As you know, when I was with the Erie 2 BOCES, that I had a resource officer when I was regional administrator, and then it seemed like a bunch of schools got involved, and then it went away, and they came back, and it went away. So what's the issue there?
Well, it's all money. The issue,
all money.
yeah, the issue was that the federal government actually had a program where they had a 4-year system. The school, or the partnership, which is the law enforcement and the school, would get 3 years for free, and then the 4th year had to be paid by the partnership. Well, when that grant ran out, many of the schools just said, we can't afford it anymore. But several have come back now and said, look, this is so important to us, we're going to find the money. Now, I'm of the belief that the federal government should be funding school resource officers nationwide. And I believe this because it is a triad approach. Not only do we have the security that the officer provides, but they're also involved in interacting with the student, we'll call them mentors. They're not counselors, as you well know. And they're also instructors in the classroom. We're going to talk about how law enforcement uses math, how we use science, how we use,
Make it instructional.
Make it instructional. So they're a resource to the, and they're bringing in other presenters, and they're connecting. Now they're also listening. They're getting information from the students. Look, so-and-so is saying this. And it gets us an ear to the ground in a community, if you will. It's its own community, as you well know.
So how many school resource officers do you have right now out there?
Well, the sheriff's office has a school resource officer at Silver Creek School, at Forestville School. We also have one at Maple Grove, or the Bemis school system. And then the Hughes Center, Laguitas, and the BOCES Center in Casadega has a school resource officer.
Oh my gosh, so there's 6 at present.
Well, the Hughes and Laguitas share.
Okay, but there are 6 sites then.
Right, then you have the other municipal police agencies that have school resource officers in some of those places too.
Well, is this something that you will continue to support?
Absolutely. We have another school right now that's in process of working toward a school resource officer. Now we got to put our side of the piece of the puzzle together and get the right person, and I support it. I wish it was. I hate mandates, but I feel that every school should have a SRO.
All right. You touched on something called the Children's Safety Education Village. What's that all about?
Well, this is one of my things that I'm very, very proud of, and Doc, you were involved in it very much so too. So it's an idea that came to me years ago by the Sertoma Club and the Herman Kent Post 777. They have a sister post in Waterloo, Canada, where they have this mini village. In fact, there's more than a dozen of them in Canada. And they brought the concept to us. We put together a grassroots effort of people, and it's a non-for-profit, 501c3, and we train children. We have a 3/4 scale village, complete with railroad crossing and traffic lights and streets and buildings, and the buildings are sponsored, so it looks real. It looks like you're in a real village, and all paved streets and marked, and we're teaching not only traffic safety but fire safety. Now we're doing CPR. We're a permanent fitting station for seatbelt or car seats, and about over 20,000 kids have gone through the safety. 20,000 kids, and it's teaching by kids actually doing. They're touching, they're doing things, and our motto is, what I hear I forget, what I see I remember, but what I do I understand, and they're doing it. And it is awesome.
And so you've been involved from day one?
From day one, yeah, and I currently serve as the president of the board of directors. And It's
Another busy thing keeping you
but
busy there.
it's
Wow.
it's awesome. If you haven't been up to the Safety Village, take a ride up, and you can walk around, and it's like being in a little mini community.
How long you been police officer?
Well, I've been in law enforcement about 39 years.
Would you start at 10 years old?
Thank you. No,
You don't
but
look
I did
that
start. I
old.
did start when I was young. I started when I was 20.
Okay. All right. So you want to run for sheriff for 4 more years. You've been sheriff, how many? 20-some?
This is my 24th year.
Aren't you getting a little worn out? I mean, some people, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, it's sort of like, you tell me what you do for a living here, and I'm getting tired listening to it all because I'm just thinking you're 24/7, right?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I'm absolutely on call all the time, and I do get calls in the middle of the night. But I love what I do, and I'm good at it. And when you love your job, it's not work. And I love serving the community. I love serving the people of Chautauqua County. I love the challenges, but I also feel very proud when we can do things to make our county safer and a better place to live and raise families. And I'm not done. I have work that is yet to be done.
Like what?
Well, this one of the things is this. Talk to you about this drug treatment pod. That's something I want to see complete. And from the statewide level, the 911 system in New York State is behind other states, and our system in Chautauqua County is next generation ready. We call NG 911. I've worked hard to get us there, so we're ready to plug into the statewide system, and I want to see that through, obviously, from the statewide level, but more importantly, the local level. But there's many more things. You know, we want to continue to make our schools, churches, and other gathering points as safe as possible, and every day is something different. It's a challenge.
Joe, I know it seems hard to believe. We're down to the last half minute. So please say what you would like to say, and then I'll wrap things up with it. So look at the camera and tell people what you want them to know.
Well, I love being your sheriff, and I'm honored to be your sheriff, and I would like to continue to do so. I believe I'm very proven, I am very professional, and proactive. We're looking at programs like our emergency medical technician program, where I've made EMTs from our deputies. We have 29 deputies right now that are EMTs, myself included. So we're trying to help the local fire services by sending an EMT to assist them. The Smart 911 is something that we were the first to be in New York State, and this is like our 911 system on steroids, if you will. You need to sign up for Smart 911 at smart911.com. It's free, but it helps us help you by sending your profile to our dispatchers when you call 911. So it's been an honor, and I want to continue to be your sheriff.
Joe, thanks for joining me today on Destination Chautauqua. Folks, as you all know, November 6th is Election Day, and I encourage everyone that has watched the show to get out and vote. Doesn't matter who you vote for, but just at least get out there and vote. And hopefully this and the other shows that we've done in the past has been educational and helps you to be an informed voter. Doc Hamels for Destination Chautauqua, Chautauqua candidates. Wish you a good weekend and a week, and take care, and we'll see you all next time. Bye now.